So we're going to go through this agenda, start off a little bit about who I am, who Intelex is, really recap what we know already on FSMA, or the Food Safety Modernization Act, and talk a little bit more about staying ahead of the curve. How do we get out in front of this thing so we can make sure that there's no bad outcomes for any of our companies going forward. So who am I? Right, I actually, as JP mentioned, I'm a software specialist here at Intelex. I focus specifically on the food and beverage industry. My main goal, I have over 6 years in the software industry, and my main goal really is to modernize information management. I have the backing of Intelex Technologies. They've been in this business for over 20 years, focused on environmental, health and safety, as well as quality management software. But for the purpose of today, I'm speaking specifically about food safety, HACCP programs, SQF software. Things of that nature is really what brings us to today. And when I was actually thinking about how we're going to run this webinar, I had a little bit of a distraction. And for everybody on the East Coast in our region, it's beautiful outside right now. It's almost 80 degrees. It's normally not this warm this time of year. So my thoughts turned to barbecuing, turned to throwing some patties on the grill and having a good dinner. And of course, as soon as I thought about doing that, there was a ground beef recall in my region. And you know what? It takes the fun out of things. Obviously there weren't many people affected. But that's really what this is all about. And food safety is really trying to get out ahead of these sorts of situations, right? Prior to the Food Safety Modernization Act, or FSMA, food safety regulations were old and outdated. They hadn't been revised since FDR's time. Foodborne illnesses and food recalls have been around for decades. But for some reason, even though we're becoming more advanced technologically, they're still on the rise. And according to a very recent report that we had found on the web, from the Center for Disease Control, the CDC, of 39 outbreaks and 2,348 illnesses that occurred between 2005 and 2010, nearly half occurred in 2009 and 2010. That's shocking. And this partially is a product of the increase in globalization of supply chains, and specifically food supply chains. Right? So what did we see? We saw the government step in on the need to protect consumers. They tightened food safety and ensured internationally imported foods met certain quality and safety standards. Barack Obama, he signed the bill into law just over a year ago, right? January 2011, it passed in Congress and in the Senate. The key theme is it makes regulators more diligent and businesses more proactive in terms of inspections, accountability, and ownership. Right? The act, of course, when it came into play, it did meet some criticism. Some felt that it would unfairly impact small operations. I'm a big fan of farmers market. I go to the farmers market in my neighborhood every Sunday, and this idea that this bill could impact those types of organizations, that's where the criticisms were coming from, and so forth came the Tester Amendment, right? And this was introduced to allow the exemption of certain businesses that produced or handled limited amounts of foods and products that deal locally. That being said, in general, all food and beverage businesses must comply with FSMA regulations, right? And in fact, when this act is fully implemented, food and beverage businesses will have to be certified to handle, distribute, or manufacture food products. The CDC report I mentioned earlier also showed that imports are the key responsibility for half of the foodborne illnesses and outbreaks.